what's moving me now is helping lawyers be happier. On a night in the middle of the summer in July, I got a call at 3 a.m. saying, your office is on fire. Nobody knew who I was in 2011. You could walk around Detroit and ask 10 people, who's Mike Morse? Nobody would know who I was.
Welcome to Celebrating Justice, presented by the Trial Lawyers Journal and Cloudlex, the next-gen legal cloud platform built exclusively for personal injury law. Get inspired by the nation's top trial lawyers and share in the stories that shape our pursuit of justice. Follow the podcast and join our community at triallawyersjournal.com. Now here's your host, editor of TLJ and VP of Marketing at Cloudlex, Chad Sands.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Season 1 finale of Celebrating Justice. In this episode, we're sitting down with the one and only Mike Morse from Mike Morse Law Firm in Michigan. The author and man behind the fireproof method is not only one of the most influential trial lawyers in our country, I would call him a legit, bona fide winner. To get to the stories, I asked him, why did you want to become a trial lawyer?
Well, thinking back to my childhood and my high school years, which is when you usually figure that stuff out, I had no other thoughts on what to do. I remember wanting to be a firefighter or a doctor before I was 10 years old, and then that quickly dissipated when I realized I didn't love school. My dad was a trial lawyer. He made it look fun. He never complained about it. I used to go to the office with him starting at age like 6 or 7. Every Saturday morning, we would drive downtown Detroit. We'd have a ritual. I remember getting donuts every morning and riding up in this crazy inside parking ramp and going to his building and playing with his copy machines and emptying the dots out of his paper punchers. And he'd have clients coming in. He'd have workers in the building. He was super nice to all of them. They were super nice to him. And it was just, I don't know. I remember it being a really nice, fun, warm and fuzzy environment. And I did that basically for my whole life. And I was general business major, and I was taking all these classes in finance and accounting and economics, and basically hated them all. And so college was ending. I started taking the LSAT, did okay on it, nothing great. Got enough of a score to get into a law school in Detroit so I could be near my dad, move home, practice with him, learn from him, be in his office, because that's all I knew. I thought he was making a good living, and it looked like, okay, I could do this. I could have some fun doing this. And that's what I did.
So you decided to follow in your father's footsteps and headed to law school, and your dad was a solo, right?
My dad was a solo, very small office, 2 or 3 total people, shared space with others. I thought that was normal. I didn't know that people had bigger firms at that point in time, but that was his makeup.
So personal injury, very competitive. You have to cut through the noise and stand out. So the second question I like to ask is, what makes you unique as a trial lawyer? Or maybe I should ask you, why are you Cherry Garcia and not vanilla?
Because that's the best flavor. That's the only flavor. You know, I know you've read the book, and I appreciate that. And for anybody who hasn't read the book, I have had lots of fires in my life, and I've been able to bounce back from them pretty quickly. And that's why the name of the book is Fireproof. And one of the fires was in 2011, when the person who was sending me 70% of my business basically pulled the rug out in front of me in a 5-minute meeting in my office. And I had 40 employees and had my own family to support. And I didn't know how I was going to make up those 70% of cases. I didn't know how to do it other than going on TV, going on billboards, going on other mediums, and trying to get attention, right? Nobody knew who I was in 2011. You could walk around Detroit and ask 10 people, who's Mike Morse? Nobody would know who I was. And so as I started quickly surveying the landscape of personal injury lawyers, I learned that they were spending over $30 million a year on TV. Billboards, I don't know, but there was a lot of billboards. It was a crowded market. All the commercials were crappy. They were all vanilla. They were all the same. And I was going to have to take money out of my bank account in my savings and compete. Part of me was like, I can't just put up the same old garbage. I'm not going to get the attention I need. I need to get attention. So we started experimenting with me talking to strangers with a microphone in my face and doing something different. Me standing out on street corners, acting like a reporter. Then I started introducing my mom and my dog and my sister in the commercials. And that kind of sparked people's interest. And people started calling and people started saying they loved my mom and they're hiring me because my mom approves of me, which I thought was strange, but they didn't even know if it was my real mom. But it was fun and different. And then we started doing some satirical type stuff and looking to make some points and some messaging, like me chasing an ambulance is people's favorite ad that I've ever done. It's on YouTube, Mike Morse Law Firm. And to this day, that was 10, maybe more years ago. It's different. It's memorable. My commercials are memorable. My billboards are memorable. My social media is memorable. People are talking about them around the water cooler, where my competitors and 99% of the ads around this country are not memorable. People aren't walking up to these people and saying, God, I really love your commercials.
Right.
They're not saying it. Now, they might be getting calls and people might still use their businesses. I'm not saying they don't work. I'm saying I couldn't, number one, do it, stomach it, risk $1 million out of my bank account because I didn't have a lot of money. And I didn't think it was going to work at the scale I needed it to work. So I had to come up with something different. I think I did. And I think over the last 10, 11, 12 years, in almost every market that I research, some of the commercials are getting better. I'd like to take a tiny, tiny bit of credit about that.
Yes.
I do get national recognition on my awards through the National Trial Lawyers. I've won the best 30-second spot since they've been giving out awards. I think it's been 5 or 6 years now. I think that lawyers are starting to see them. They're calling me. There's 10 or 11 law firms around this country who are using the guy who comes up with my ads, who's a Detroit local great guy, Ross Lerner, who is a dear friend of mine. And he has had cataclysmic success because of the success we've had here in Detroit, which makes me really, really, really happy because my friends and people who help me kill it, I want them to kill it. I'm a huge promoter of people. So Cherry Garcia is, and I talk on stages all over the country about this. It's about just getting people's attention and becoming memorable and doing the same thing as everybody else, being a sheep, following everybody and I had this mentality too. So I'm going to own this. Like I looked at I survey a landscape. I said, they're all wealthy attorneys. They've been doing it for a long time. They're driving nice cars. They have big firms. They're successful. Why don't I just do the exact same thing as them? And I think that that's how most people think.
Yeah.
I'm going to copy them. I'm going to follow them. I thought that for a minute and a half. I really did. But then I realized that wasn't going to work for me. So I found my differentiator. Cherry Garcia is just such a fun way of saying it. I just found out what makes me different, what makes you stand out, what makes you special, what makes you who you are, right? You got to find those things and not be afraid to go after it, even if it's not on TV. You can stand out on social media. You can stand out on platforms, have a podcast, do whatever it is you do, but just be different. How are you going to get your community's attention, right? We do dog events, we do backpack events, we do things to make us stand out, and it works. So you got to do a lot of different things to stand out. That's a long answer to answer what Cherry Garcia is, but I love talking about it. I love the concept. I think that most lawyers fail at it, but the ones who get it right are seeing success.
Fireproof is an amazing name. And you talk about the twin tragedies, as you called them in the book, when you were fired out of the blue by your dad's best friend on your dad's birthday. And then you have to get it together over the weekend, open up your own firm on Monday. Can you take me back to before you got fired, after you got fired, and what you did over the weekend to restart and rebuild?
So my dad died when I was in law school, so him and I weren't able to practice. I got my first job after my first year of law school that my dad actually set up for me before he died with the largest personal injury firm in Michigan, which is a little ironic because I'm now the largest personal injury firm in Michigan. They've disbanded. Great firm, Lopate and Miller. I'll give them a shout out because I learned a lot those 3 months, a ton. I was only there 3 months, but I learned a ton. And I learned how to hustle. my dad died, I realized that I'm on my own. Like nobody's there saving me. Nobody's going to help me. Nobody's going to take me under their wing and totally protect me. Kind of thought they would, but they didn't. Ended up screwing me really badly. But I learned early on that like I had to do this on my own. My best friend, my mentor, my dad was gone. I didn't have anybody else to rely on. And so I remember those days very, very vividly, just trying to figure it all out to be successful. And then after law school, like you mentioned, my dad's friend took me under his wing. So I thought was a wing that was going to
Yeah.
help me. I worked there for 3 years. I learned everything that I needed. I learned how to work up a file, how to sign up a file, how to do depositions, how to try a case, how to interact with staff, how to interact with secretaries, office politics, the works. I was good at all of it. I just was. I was 25 years old. I was good at bringing in cases. I brought in hundreds of cases. I was good at keeping clients happy. I was good at getting clients to send more people. I was good at if a case was to settle, I was good at talking the clients into settling the case or trying the case, or I had a decent personality and I was able to figure it out. I thought everything was going really well at this firm. I mean, there's a lot of details to this that I'm leaving out, but they're in the book. And it was a good 3 years, I thought. And then on September 21st, 1995, my dad's best friend didn't take me to lunch, but his two partners took me to lunch.
Oh,
They sat me down and said, I thought we're just going to lunch.
yeah.
I didn't take anything off my desk. I just thought we were going to lunch on Friday. Hey, Mike, let's go to lunch. Okay. Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Go to, they said, you drive separate. Okay. In hindsight, I'm walking out of my office and they're changing the frickin' locks.
Already?
Yeah. And this was a whole big plan. And they took me to lunch and they said, before we ordered, and I've said this, I wasn't planning on leaving that firm. I'd probably be there today, 30 some odd years later. My good friends will disagree with that. They thought I always had that in me to go on my own. But at that exact moment, I never thought about it. Never once did I do the math and say, I should be doing this on my own. Never once. They fired me. They gave me no reason. I drove off. I remember running out of there, shaking, catatonic, basically, driving home. I remember calling my dad's friend and saying, what just happened? And he said, they told me you were leaving, you were going to steal files and blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's not true. I don't remember. And then we hung up and I remember my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, who's now my ex-wife.
Uh-huh.
We drove to Chicago. My mom and stepdad were there and I just needed to get away and clear my head. I called my best friend from law school, Jason, and I said, this just happened. And he was referring me some cases. And he said, come see me Monday morning, 9 a.m. at my office, which was 10 minutes from my old office. And I walked in and it was one of these joint lawyer spaces. And there was 12 lawyers with 12 offices and a shared receptionist and a shared library. They happened to have an open one. The owner of the suite, his name was Miles, and he came down and he said, you want this office? It's $1,000 a month, which was a lot of money in that time, but you get the receptionist included. You get everything included. And I negotiated really quickly. And it was a really old, beat up, ugly desk with an ugly, beat up chair and 2 guest chairs and a decent sized office. I said, can you throw those in? And he said, sure. And he might have even said for an extra $100 a month or something. I'm like, okay. And I have not told this story in such a long time. So Jason, who'd been practicing for 3 years on his own, taught me how to get a phone number, taught me how to set up bank accounts, taught me I had to get malpractice insurance, taught me to come up with the name of a law firm and, do all that stuff. And I did that all on that Monday morning. I got business cards printed. I think I bought a computer. Him and I just worked out a business arrangement that he would continue to send me cases. I would teach him how to work them up because he wasn't doing personal injury. And we split the fees, I believe. And he was going to front the cost because I had no money. And it was a great arrangement. And Jason now is one of the best trial lawyers, PI lawyers, in town. It was a win-win for me because I was getting a case flow. I had no money for anything. I think I was paying $100 for the back of a raggy magazine, and I think I also went into the yellow pages. I couldn't afford the big. All there was 84 full page ads where people were paying thousands of dollars a month for. I'm like, how am I going to get in the front of the yellow pages? And I don't know. I saw this somewhere. It's just a accident attorney works for you or something, and I put an ad in, and the phone did start ringing a little bit with some crappy cases. I went around to every law firm owner in town saying, I'm on my own. Let me try your cases. Please refer me cases. I treated them like gold. If I got a referral fee, I'd run it to their office. I never was upset about writing a referral fee. And there's so many lawyers out there who are assholes about it and don't like it and send the check back with negative energy. And I was like, I never understood that. These people are making me be able to eat. I remember thanking people profusely. And I remember thanking my clients. I was so grateful for everything I had that I didn't even know it was a super strength or a superpower or whatever, but I was just really grateful for everything because I was just literally kicked to the street, which as a 26, 7-year-old person, it's just not a nice feeling. Your dad had just died. You thought everything was going well. You were working hard. You were ethical. You were doing everything right. And then this happened. And I've had an extreme sense of gratitude ever since. I mean, it is like the number one thing that I practice and think about and probably helps me be successful. But I am grateful for everything and everybody who helps me in my job, everybody who helps me in my life, and think about it all the time. I have a gratefulness practice in my mornings, nights. I think about gratefulness. I write down things. So many people help me, including Jason and the guy who gave me that office and all the lawyers around town who helped me get back on my feet. So it was a scrappy time. Getting fired and losing that confidence definitely was a massive fire.
You do have other fires in your life I actually wanted to talk about. The second fire you talk about in the book was when your firm actually burned down to the ground. Can you tell that story?
So that's 2007. So between 1995 and 2007, 12 years, I connected with Sid, who's a massive lawyer in my town, who sent me thousands of cases a year.
He was like 70% of your caseload, right?
Correct. So stuff started going really well. My firm took off. I went from a solo to 30, 40 employees. I had to move out of the town center, which is where I was with Jason. Him and I bought a small building, and then that took off. And I before you knew it, in a space that had 10 employees, I had 35 working out of a space that had no more than 10 employees allowed. I had 8 lawyers sitting around a conference room table. It was crazy growth, crazy growth, all based upon no advertising, no marketing, all based upon my advertising budget was zero, all based upon all the good hard work that we've been talking about and treating people well and being grateful and paying referral fees and all that stuff. 2007, everything's great. I'm in this new office building, 6,400 square feet. I just spent a lot of money building it out. I loved it. It could fit us all. And on a night in the middle of the summer in July, I got a call at 3 a.m. saying, your office is on fire. Jumped out of bed, drove there. I remember being able to smell the smoke when I'm a mile away, pulled up in the parking lot, fire trucks, fire people running around everywhere. My secretary, Lori, was in the parking lot. She grabbed me. We cried. We looked at this building that I hadn't even been in a year yet. And it was crazy. And yeah, that was a fire, but we were paperless. We were one of the first firms in the country to be paperless. My IT team went down and saved our server. We were answering phone calls that morning in my parking lot. They strung the phones out in the parking lot. My team got tents. My lawyers were in court that morning. It was a Friday morning. Friday is a busy day here in Detroit. They're all in court. Didn't miss a beat. And another reason we're called fireproof, or we use that term, is because a major fire didn't take us down.
Amazing.
And that was definitely one of the major fires.
You had a couple other early fires in your life, especially your stepfather, who was a psychologist, and then you guys had to move town because of him?
Yeah, that wasn't even...
Because you were like a senior in high school and you had to basically just move towns because your stepdad was a dirtbag?
Just a bad guy. And actually it was 8th grade, worse.
Okay.
Then senior year of high school. Yeah, my mom's second husband was a disaster choice. He was an abusive guy. So that was 8th grade, had to move out to a new district where I knew nobody.
Yeah.
High school was kind of a mess because of that. Couldn't wait to get the hell out of Detroit, went to Arizona for college. And that was, I don't even list that as a fire really. And you're smart that you picked up on that. But that was absolutely another fire in my childhood. The divorce, getting bullied throughout high school, having to move, dad dying first year of law school. I mean, there's lots of shit that went on in my life. My mom says to me, if those things didn't happen, you wouldn't be who you are today. And I agree with that. It's not easy pill to swallow because she made some bad choices. Other people made bad choices. I don't necessarily wish that on anybody. Did it make me who I am today? Probably, of course, right? All of the stuff that happens to us as kids make us who we are. But that was absolutely another fire.
I saw on LinkedIn that it is your 29th anniversary at Mike Morse Law Firm. And you talked about it a little bit when you really kind of had to make a gamble and you saw this opportunity to jump into TV. I think your spots are really good. Do you have a favorite commercial that you've done?
So, look, an Ambulance Chaser is great.
Yeah.
It was well shot. I have a ton of spots with my mom, making my mom the superstar. We have 3 more. We're shooting tomorrow, actually. 3 more mom spots, all mom spots. Everybody I see, more mom spots, more mom spots. So right now we're playing with the concept still of her being way more popular and famous than me.
Yes, yes.
And they're all focused on that. And the people love it. I love it. My mom loves it. I just want to clarify one thing, Chad, because for people who are listening, I think it wasn't a risk to go on TV.
Okay.
It was out of necessity. What else? To this day, all these years later, that was 2011. So when Sid walked into my office and said, "We're done," after this massive 10, 12-year run, like I was sending him $4 million a year in referral fees, and I was making a nice living. I was top of the world.
Yeah, like you made it.
Dude, made it is an understatement. I felt grateful. I never wanted to be on TV. I never wanted anybody outside of my office building to know my name. But think about that, right? So you're killing it.
Yeah.
You got 40 employees. You're feeding them and their families. You have young kids. 70% of your business went out the window. And being a lawyer, a personal injury lawyer, is not easy to get cases. You can't just put a sign up there and say, "Send me cases." Like, what was I to do? So out of necessity, the only thing I could think of at the time, and as I sit here all these years later, 13 years later, I don't know what I could have done different. So out of necessity, luckily I had money in the bank, but I knew that if it didn't work, I was just flushing it down the toilet.
Yeah.
And I could have laid off a bunch of people and closed up shop or gone back down to 3, 4 people. I didn't have that stomach. That was actually really never even an option. I couldn't do it. So I bet on myself. I've always bet on myself, right? So 2011, I have some track record. I have some history of my work ethic, of success, of who I am as a person, of all the fires that I'd been through. And I said, I can make this work. I know it's going to take some time. And I took the risk on myself. I took the gamble. I bet the money. And luckily it worked.
I think the best Oscar goes to your performance in Sue's Son.
I know the one you're talking about. That put my mom on the map like she's the celebrity, because that's the one where I'm sitting in a diner and this African-American woman comes up and says, "Are you Mike?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're Sue's son." Yeah. So now when I go places, it's "Love your mom." Is that really your mom? I'm like, "Nope, that's an actress. I just mess with people and they laugh." And the community here has embraced me, has embraced my mom, embraced the spots. That's why I do so much for the community, because they have done so much for us. It is so amazing, the synergies between this community and my law firm and my mom. It's so fun. And I'm obviously grateful.
I can't cover everything you do, but something that stands out to me, because I'm an animal lover, is you're a big supporter of animals. Where did that love for animals come from? Did that come from your childhood?
No, I didn't get my first dog until I was in my 20s, I think. I've had 2 dogs in my life, both the loves of my life. One of them is here with me today, Jessie. She's taking a nap in the corner, 10-year mutt. Both from Michigan Humane, which is my favorite nonprofit here in Detroit. We support them. We're partners with them. We do lots of dog adoption events here in my law office. We call it the Mike Morse Paw Firm for the day. And I'm a huge believer of adopting. I judge my friends who shop and go spend $5,000 for a doodle, but I can't help it. And you could judge me for judging them, but I do every single day. And I love these rescues. My kids love it. And it just makes the world a better place when you're adopting and saving and rescuing these animals.
Agreed. Maybe you could share some tips for other attorneys out there that are, looking to get into TV. Are you still doing mainly broadcast and local TV? Have you guys started doing streaming or OTT, Hulu ads? Share a little bit about what you guys are doing for your marketing strategy for TV spots.
If you're going to spend on TV, you need to have a really good CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. I have a coaching program. I coach currently over 50 law firms on how to do this. We have a mastermind program, and we sit around and we talk about best practices. And the most successful law firms have somebody dedicated at their law firm in making those decisions. The worst performing law firms are doing, one visionary lawyer is doing it all. And I try to convince them not to. So I have to give that shout out because I'm not an expert in that stuff. I don't know how to buy media. The answer is, yeah, we're everywhere. We're doing OTT. We're doing YouTube. We're doing streaming. We're doing, Google AdWords, radio, not a ton of billboards, broadcast, very little cable, sports, NIL deals. We're doing tons of stuff. Yes. And our budget can afford it. I wouldn't do all these things if my budget was $500,000, of course. But that's what a CMO helps you figure out. Where are you going to get the most bang for your buck? The good thing about the world we're living in now is that, with a small budget, you can go out there and get people's attention on social media and other things. It's guerrilla marketing. It's guerrilla warfare out there trying to get attention for any business these days. But you gotta be smart, right? If you came to me with $1 million, I'm not going to say, go throw it on radio.
Right.
I'm not going to say go to OTT only.
Yeah.
But, you need smart people to help you make those decisions.
You mentioned it in the book, and we talked about it a little bit already, but your dad was kind of the only reason why you were in law school or went to law school. Do you ever think about what you would be doing with your life if you weren't a lawyer, or, you didn't stay in law school and follow that path that your dad wanted you to do in terms of his legacy of helping other people?
I truly don't. Back then I was just lost. I didn't know. I had no direction. If you ask me today, I would probably go into some kind of advertising or marketing role. I would be selling something. I'm very entrepreneurial. I come up with new ideas every single day. I was on 2 entrepreneurial type calls this morning already. I'm bullish on masterminds for any business. Okay. This is not just for lawyers.
Yeah.
I have learned in the last 5 years, I've been in consistent masterminds. And for those of your listeners who don't know what a mastermind is, Chad, it's just 10 smart people who do exactly what you do in a room, sharing what's working, what's not working, ideas and networking. And I have been doing that, and I've learned more from those than anything else. And I've made some of my best friends from those. And it's usually not people in your market, right? So I'm not going to sit down with 10 of the personal injury law firms in Detroit and do this. But I have friends now in Atlanta and in Miami and in New York and in Vegas and in LA. And we all sit around and we talk about what's working, what's working. So now we're setting up a network of masterminds for smaller firms, comp firms, criminal law firms, family law firms, personal injury law firms under the fireproof mastermind concept. And I'm bullish on it because I'm gonna lead them. My team's gonna lead them. We're gonna meet a bunch of new lawyers and have fun with them and teach them. And where I'm at this stage of my life, like I'm all about experiences. Like I'm not buying more houses. I'm not buying art. I'm not buying cars. I'm looking for great experiences, and I have the most fun teaching, coaching, and getting to know people and connecting with people. And so I'm really bullish on masterminds. And if any of your people, are thinking, "Wow, that sounds cool," call me, email me, get a hold of me, and the stuff below. But it's changed my firm over the last 5 years. Like I could give you 100 examples, but how I'm learning from these hopefully sometimes more successful firms than me, sometimes trying to catch up to me. Doesn't matter. They're doing things in their markets that I'm not doing. And we're looking at our numbers, we're looking at our finances, we're looking at our percentage of income to revenue, we're looking at cost per case, how long it takes to get a case through the system, your average fees. Like, I want to know what it is in Vegas and in Chicago and in LA and in Miami and compared to Detroit, and what can I learn from them? And percentage of your percentage of your employees, a percentage of your marketing, a percentage of all this stuff. It's super exciting. So that's just one example of what I would be doing if I wasn't practicing, but I'm doing it while I'm practicing because I'm a really good delegator. I have a really good executive leadership team who backs me when I go off, and I could leave for a month or 2 months and my team is just, running the show, making sure our clients are getting world-class experiences and outcomes and results without me even being here, which is, I think, the true vision of it should be the true vision for any lawyer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Fireproof is not just a book for lawyers or law firms. I mean, even the legal jumbotron chapter is basically like a marketing masterclass on KPIs and what you should be tracking as a firm or business in general. So yeah, not just for law firms.
3 of my last 3 speeches, one was to a financial institution, one was to a group of nonprofits, and one was to a bunch of mortgage guys. And it all applies, dude. It just all applies across the board. So you're right, Chad. You're right. I wouldn't be pigeonholed to lawyers. All of these concepts in the book and what I like to talk about is it just goes across all mediums.
All right, let's get back to the stories. So after 32 years, I know it's hard to choose one, but could you share a story about a case that had a significant impact on you?
Most recent, there's 2, and they're completely different. Let me just think which one I want to dive into. One was a personal injury case where I came back out of retirement, basically, in my trial world and got a $75 million verdict 6 weeks ago for a wrongful death case in Detroit.
That sounds like a Tom Cruise or John Grisham movie right there.
Maybe it might be one day. The other one is a case that I had no business taking. Man was wrongfully convicted. The Michigan Innocence Project called me and said, Michael, we need your help on it. And long story short, I got him out of prison after 2 years of my work getting him out of prison. So he's out of prison. He just had a baby and he's home and he was supposed to die in prison. All right, those are your 2 stories. You get to pick which one I tell in detail.
All right, I want both. So you can start with the wrongful conviction.
I was bored during COVID. I started a podcast, and the guy who was helping me load up my show with great guests was a great guy named Kevin Dietz. Used to be a former newscaster here in town, and he started loading me up with these wrongfully convicted people who had already gotten out. There wasn't an episode where I didn't have tears in my eyes thinking like this system totally screwed these people. And I wasn't looking for cases. I wasn't looking for anything other than tell a good story and learn, and that's it, man. Just try to entertain, really, right? Trying to do something interesting with my time off. And I loved these people, mostly men. There was a woman, Julie, who was wrongfully convicted. And I got to dive in for 2-3 hours. Like you like stories. These were unbelievable stories that weren't told.
Yeah.
And they saddened me. But that was it. I mean, I wasn't, again, how am I going to monetize this? How am I going to help these people? I'm a personal injury lawyer. I've never handled a criminal case in my life. So a few years ago, Dave Moran, who runs the Michigan Innocence Project in Ann Arbor, which is obviously one of the top law schools in the country, if not the top. I did not go there. I did not have the grades to go there. Amazing institution in Ann Arbor, 35 minutes from my house. He called me one day and said, can we talk? And I took his call. I'd heard of him. I actually had a lunch with him. Somebody wanted to introduce us because he ran one of the first and best and most successful innocent projects in the country. Sweet, underspoken guy who's supposed to be an amazing lawyer, but I didn't really know him. And he said, Michael, we got a case. Case name is Michael Griffin. He was convicted in Flint, Michigan, murder, and we don't think he got a fair trial, and we don't know if he did it. And I said, well, why are you calling me, David? I've never handled a criminal case in my entire life, not even anything other than speeding tickets. And he said, Michael, I've listened to some of your podcasts of these wrongfully convicted people. You have a passion behind you to expose the truth in these things. He gave me some nice accolades that I won't repeat. And it was just like he said, I think you can do it. And I pushed back a little bit. I said, all right, David, send me the transcripts. So he sent me the files, and the transcripts were small. So for you, as the lawyers on this who are listening know that, a trial transcript could be inches and inches long, right? Thick, if you still print them out. A lot of people are now doing them digital. These were printed out and sent to me. They were a half an inch thick for the trial.
Huh.
So if that was my first red flag. I remember reading them in an hour because they were so short. And again, Chad, I've never tried a criminal case, nor have I ever read a criminal transcript. 30 years.
But red flags were coming up because like this guy was sentenced to life and the transcript is
half an inch. The defense attorney, who he was appointed, of course, because he was poor, living in Flint, barely asked questions on cross, didn't do a great open, didn't do a great close, didn't present a single witness, expert witness. The prosecution had 9. Now, I knew nothing if that was good or bad or illegal or unethical, but it just said, this is weird. No wonder he was convicted in 17 minutes or whatever the heck it was. I don't even remember that. I made that up, 17 minutes. But it was short. It was not
Yes.
a 3-day
deliberation.
And my gut was, this isn't right. Now, of course, I hadn't even met the guy. They were accusing him of shaking his baby and killing her, which, I mean, I have 3 daughters. I'm not an advocate for murderers or anything like that, but I am an advocate for fairness and justice, and it didn't seem fair. And again, I didn't meet him. I didn't know if he did it or not, but he certainly didn't get a good defense.
Right.
And so I said yes. I got my team together. I have an appellate team, and I said, what do you guys think? And they're like, let's help this guy. This is not right. 2 years in the making. I mean, there's lots of stories there, but I obviously met with him. He was up in prison. And so we had a few phone calls. He was appreciative of my help. Mind you, University of Michigan wasn't going to, they didn't have the manpower during COVID. They didn't have the students. They didn't have the help. I don't know if they would have passed on it. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people sending these letters saying I'm innocent, by the way. I mean, that we could go into this. We could do another podcast on this. But luckily, he got Michigan's attention. Luckily, they called me. Luckily, I said yes. 2 years later, he's out. Has a baby since he's been out. We were able to get him some wrongful incarceration money. So he's got a little bit of money in the bank now. And it's a wonderful, great feeling story. And we all feel amazing about it. And it did change me, and it changed my outlook, and it changed my firm. And the lawyers who worked on it with me, there's a couple lawyers who've been practicing a long time, said that was the best day of my career. Walking him out of prison, righting a wrong was everything. I mean, it was amazing. And as I'm saying the words to you, Chad, like I don't know how it's changed me. I don't know. It hasn't changed my practice. I don't have a big wrongful conviction department in my practice right now. I haven't taken on another one, although some are coming and they're asking me to. But it was just, it was like, it showed the power of what us trial lawyers can do. I have been on stages trying to encourage lawyers. I was at a stage recently and there was 300 lawyers in the room. I said, if you all take a case that means something to you, to your community, to the world, and you all did your best work, imagine the impact we could make as trial lawyers. And it had to do with Cherry Garcia, and it had to do with being different, and it had to be with that kind of stuff. But it really, that message is true, right? I haven't gotten a single personal injury case because of it. I haven't made $1 off it. I didn't charge anybody anything. But it made me feel really good. It made my firm feel really good. It made the people who work here feel really good. And that's important. I think the impacts of that case are long lasting. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my team. I'm happy that I said yes. Proud of myself, I guess, right? I don't pat myself on the back that much. And I'm proud that we took that case and we made a difference. And when I see that he's happy and he's got a baby and we were able to really change a man's life, because what's worse than being in prison for the rest of your life for something you didn't do? or something you didn't get. And most of those people I interviewed on my show absolutely didn't do it. It wasn't just not a fair trial, but, at the end of the case, people came out and said, I'm sorry, it wasn't you. Like on some of these people. And they spent 10, 20, 30, 50 years in prison. Like,
Yeah.
those things drove me crazy. And if I could help every one of these people, I would. That to me is like the biggest injustice of them all. And I don't talk about it much. This is the most I've talked about it. I mean, I wish that every law firm in the country would take one of these once in their life. I think they're saying 10% of the people in prison probably shouldn't be there, wrongfully convicted or didn't get fair trials. 10%, that's tens of thousands of people, if not more. That just freaks me out and it makes me really sad.
Well, you should be proud and you should talk about it. But you mentioned the other case that kind of brought you out of retirement.
So, all transparency, obviously I'm not retired, but I hadn't tried a case in over 10 years. I was focused on growing my firm and raising my family and doing other things. And I hired great trial lawyers. But this case spoke to me. The family came in. This is now 5 years ago. And they told me this tragic story of their son, 21-year-old, beautiful son, who was at a friend's house trying to study for a test. He asked them for an Adderall. One of the idiots gave him Molly instead. He went down and they wouldn't call 911 to save him, even though he was clearly struggling, and they let him die in the house without calling 911. That's a obviously short version of the story. It moved me. I remember crying with his family and saying, I will get you justice. I will, even if there's no money here, I will get you justice. I will try this case if I have to. Fast forward 4.5 years, came to trial. I still felt the same way. And I prepared and tried the case to a Wayne County jury, and a jury awarded $75 million for his life, which was the largest wrongful death verdict in Michigan history. And another thing that I'm proud about, that this family was able to get justice. This family was able to sleep at night after this verdict. They got to tell their story. It was a big deal for everybody, including my firm. And that just happened. So I'm not even sure all the life-changing things that's going to involve, but that was a meaningful thing.
I was watching some of the press conference about it, and they just gave this kid Molly, thinking that it was a joke or something.
Yes. This one kid, Nick Remington, was a drug dealer. And we proved that at trial, and my lawyers who backed me up on this case, mind you, my lawyers worked up this case for 4.5 years. I came in and tried it, took all the glory at the end of the case, as I like to say. This one bad actor gave him Molly and kept giving him Molly throughout the night, videotaped him, put him on Snapchat, didn't help him. People are freaking out. People are recording it on their own devices and then sending it to the police. I mean, it was horrific.
Yeah.
And he died in their home. I remember hearing about that case. I went right home to my children, told them the story. There was emotions talking to my kids and just saying, you don't know who you can trust, because this boy, Dennis, thought he was trusting a good friend. And he was at his friend's house. And then his friend's friend gave him a study aid. So he said, here, try this. This will help you study. And it was a high dose of Molly. He died with 81 times more Molly in his system than he should have had. And it obviously killed him. And they could have saved his life by calling 911. It was a tragic, horrific story that could have been prevented. And that case and the Michael Griffin case and other cases that are going to come, and we have a lot of big cases in our office that we're trying to make a difference and bring justice to things. And I know most lawyers talk about that stuff, and I'm blessed that I'm in this place where people are calling me and trusting me to do this for their loved ones. And I put my heart and soul into it, and I put a really good team behind it, and we take it seriously. And interestingly, neither one of those two cases that I just talked about, never thought about this till this second, Chad, had anything to do with money. It wasn't about money. It was about doing the right thing and justice. And it just keeps propelling you forward, and your employees feel it and your community feels it. And it's another reason why I think I became a lawyer without knowing why I became a lawyer back in the day. Things are evolving 32 years later, but this is the stuff that I hope to be able to keep doing for the rest of my career.
At CloudLex, we understand the challenges personal injury law firms face every day. That's why we've built the Legal Cloud platform to help you stay productive and keep your cases moving forward. CloudLex provides a comprehensive suite of applications and features to support every stage of intake, pre-litigation, trial, and more. From innovative case management to insightful analytics and HIPAA-secure client communication, Cloudlex empowers your firm with the technology to thrive. Build your firm of the future and see for yourself at cloudlex.com. Now, here is this episode's closing argument.
I love this profession. I love helping people. I love helping other lawyers get to where I feel like I'm at, which is working in my sweet spot, which I define as working on things I love to do and things I'm great at. I've helped over 40,000 clients throughout my career. I'm handling thousands of cases right now. But what's moving me now is helping lawyers be happier, helping lawyers be better. And that lights me up. I'm seeing lawyers become more happy. I'm seeing lawyers move into their sweet spots, making less money while being able to be home with their children more. I've never been a workaholic. And I think some of these business skills that we're teaching about delegation and having great teams and making sure you're hiring the right people is so important. Right now, I'm super pumped up about helping law firms and law firm owners and figure out their Cherry Garcia and, making their firms more fireproof. All they need to do is understand that their law firms are businesses. Some people call my firm the best run firm in the country. I'm still working on my firm every week, and so I encourage others to do the same thing. And I'm just out there now teaching firms how to make sure you're ready for that disaster in your market. And I think that if you do the things that we talk about in Fireproof, you wouldn't have to shut down for an earthquake, for a tornado, for a hurricane, for COVID, for a fire. I'd love to see every lawyer in the country in a mastermind one day, whether it's run by Fireproof or run by somebody else. They are just so helpful, and I don't think everybody even knows about them. I'm going to keep meeting new people, keep getting on stages and sharing all of this fun stuff, encouraging law firms to take on that case that's not going to make you any money, but it's going to make you a better person. It's going to make your law firm better. It's going to make your lawyers love you. It's going to make your communities be in awe of you and why are you taking these cases? These things are not that hard. You just got to commit to them and think differently.
That was trial lawyer Mike Morse, also known as Sue's son. Thanks for sharing your stories. To learn more about Mike, the Fireproof Method, and his firm, visit 855mikewins.com. All right, I'm Chad Sands. Thanks for listening. See you next season.
You've been listening to Celebrating Justice, presented by Cloudlex and the Trial Lawyers Journal. Remember, the stories don't end here. Visit triallawyersjournal.com to become part of our community and keep the conversation going. And for a deeper dive into the tools that empower personal injury law firms, visit cloudlex.com/TLJ to learn more.